Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome back to Sabbatical Stories. I'm your host, Bex Thomas, and I created this podcast to inspire courage and normalise taking a break from your career. If you find the stories valuable, I would love it if you could help by subscribing, liking, and rating the show. It really does mean a lot to us. Today, I'm joined by someone I actually used to work with back in my recruitment days at Allianz in Sydney. Epps was a senior manager of work health and safety, and while our paths crossed in the corporate world, this conversation is all about his life outside of it. Jay recently took a sabbatical full of adventure, connection and reflection, and what really stood out for me in our chat was his practice of gratitude throughout it. He shares how pausing his career gave him the chance to reset, embrace new experiences, redesign what retirement looked like, and build a different kind of resilience. It's a really honest, grounded story that I think many will relate to. Deep down, you've tried, dig deep, search wide, enjoy your climb, it's all for you. Hi Jay, and welcome to Sabbatical Stories. Thank you so much for being here. It means a lot. We actually used to work together, so our paths crossed when we both worked at Allianz, and then I've been following your journey and your career break and sabbatical on LinkedIn, so I'm super pleased that you agreed to come on and share your story. And exactly as it's that, would you please be able to give us a bit of a, I suppose, intro to Jay, and also what your break meant to you?
Yeah, sure. A little bit about me. I live in Sydney. Risk and health and safety is my thing professionally, or it was before I had this little break. And that's about it. I'm an avid traveller. I think you probably know that about me too, Bex.
And so let's go to the break. What triggered the break?
Well, I've been lucky enough to have two. The current one was triggered by a redundancy, which I was very happy to receive. It's nice to head off on a break with a little bit of money in your pocket.
A gift, as they say, the gift of redundancy.
Very true.
And what about the second? You mentioned you've got two.
Well, this is my second.
Okay.
My first one was back in 2002. In a former life, I was a policeman for 17 years, and in the middle of my service, I took 6 months off.
Wow. And so was that long service leave, what they call long service leave in New South Wales?
Yeah, absolutely. It was actually when I was working in South Australia. And so I'd been working for just over 10 years, and I decided that it was time for a break. Headed off on full, well, not quite full pay, but I headed off on a pretty good income because I decided to take my leave at half pay, and so I had some money in my pocket for that trip as well, so it was great.
Right, so interestingly, one very intentional, it sounds, very much driven by you, you'd been working for 10 years and chose to take that, and then one that was a gift of redundancy, but you chose to take time off. So give us an understanding of why you chose to take time off post the redundancy, because some people jump straight back into a role, or there's a level of scarcity around, oh my goodness, I've been made redundant, I need to find a job. What was the mindset around taking that break?
Yeah, look, I think first and foremost, extremely lucky. I'm in a great spot. I got like the little gift, as you said, as I left. And I work in work health and safety, which there is so many jobs available in work health and safety. So it's an industry where I certainly didn't feel the pressure that I needed to run off and get another job. Apart from my little break in 2002, sort of haven't had a long break since then. And so I was due for a nice break, so probably couldn't have happened at a better time.
And so talk us through what you did.
Oh God, what did I do? So I finished up in around mid-November 2024 last year, which was nice because obviously you get a little bit of a lead into your redundancy, so you're already starting to feel pretty relaxed as you're heading into it. I wanted to travel more around Asia, so I did that. I headed off to Indonesia with my friends. I spent 18 days there. I went over to Hong Kong for just a quick visit to visit some friends for 4 days. I went to the Philippines for a couple of weeks. It was on my list to go to. I hadn't been to before. And then from the Philippines, I headed over to Japan for a bit of travel with some friends as well. And in between, a few trips down to Melbourne to catch up with friends and a trip up to Coffs Harbour for the Australia Day long weekend. So it's been travel.
And was that the intent? Obviously you hadn't had a break for a while, but what was the sort of intent going into this break, and how long did you plan to take off?
The intent absolutely was to relax and to disconnect and to do nothing. And so probably the words that come to mind for me were breathe, rest, relax, refresh. That was the whole intent of this, just not to be bound by the clock and to have some free time to do what it is that I want to do and not have my purpose revolve around what I do for work. That was the thing that resonated most with me, and it's been so pleasant.
I bet. However, I think some people find it really hard to do exactly that and not give yourself goals or a tick list, or how did you go about making sure that breathe, rest, recuperate actually shone through in the break?
Look, I think for me, I put myself in a lot of places where that was about all I could really do. There was a lot of travel, there was a lot of beaches, there was a lot of islands, there was snorkeling and diving. And, when you're connecting with nature, that really is the opportunity to really just disconnect. And I think I was very lucky that I was able to do that. I did have some hobbies. During COVID, I started a couple of different games that I was creating. So one was a dice and card game and the other was a board game. So it was a chance to have a look at those and pick them back up again. Very keen to learn a language. So I've been battling Duolingo and trying to learn Chinese. And so that's been a bit of fun. And I'm actually doing a little bit of retirement planning. So this has given me a bit of an option to think about, what is it that I want? What is it that I need? And realizing that they're two very different things. And I have been practicing a lot of gratitude. I really am in a fortunate position. And I think that's something that I've really been able to reflect on in this break is that, I am lucky. I've got to live in a great country. I've got a roof over my head, I'm well fed, I've got clothes on my back, I've got great friends. What do I really need? And so this has been an opportunity for me to sell my house, which is currently on the market, and to look at downsizing and creating that pathway to a bit more of a relaxed lifestyle.
You mention putting yourself in the environment where what you needed and wanted out of the break, I suppose it facilitated that. And it's such an important point. I think I speak to so many people who take a career break and they have all of these wild and wonderful ideas that they're going to do, but actually what they need is something totally different. And so am I hearing that sort of for the break it was rest and relax, but there was also an element of looking at starting to explore the next chapter and sort of how that then leads up to retirement? And also, I want to touch on these card games. Are you developing these?
Yeah, I've been doing it just as a bit of a fun project. It sort of started during COVID. And, I think more just to get the brain thinking. I love playing board games or card games or any form of game. I absolutely love. And I thought it was just an opportunity to stretch my mind a little bit and do something just a little bit more abstract.
And when you say Dyson card game, my mind's going wild. Give me a bit of an understanding of what it is. Or is it secret?
No, it's not secret. It is just, using dice and cards together to get certain formulas. And it's a competitive game. And believe it or not, it's actually aimed at children. So a bit of a in the car or somewhere quiet sort of game.
Okay.
That's quite simple, easy to follow.
And where are you up to with the games? Have you completed them and now looking at how to commercialise, or what's the plan?
No, I don't really have a plan to commercialise. It was more just a bit of a fun hobby and project myself. And so I'm still considering what might happen with those.
Yeah, okay. Love it. Do you know what? I spoke to somebody the other day. I think everybody's got a COVID hobby. I spoke to somebody who had taken up the ukulele and I said, have you played since? He was like, no. So I love the fact that you've, started it in COVID and then you have started to pick it up again. You touched on coming back and putting your house on the market. What I'd love to understand is, intentionally or unintentionally, what has been the shift in you and your identity or values pre-break to current?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And for me, it's understanding that, your purpose isn't necessarily tied to your employment and your value isn't necessarily tied to your employment. And I think that's one thing we sort of learn as we grow up, we're all on the treadmill of life and we all head off to a job and that sort of becomes our identity and our purpose. And the actual fact is it probably isn't for most of us. It's just what we do to pay the bills. And I think that's been the light bulb moment for me is that, you have your own separate identity outside of work, and that's something that I've really enjoyed engaging with.
How did you uncover that? How did you go from being on that treadmill and your identity being linked to what you do to then actually finding out who Jay really is?
It's really interesting because I thought I would head off on this sabbatical knowing that I'm going to go off on holidays and I'm going to go and travel, and this will be this mindset that I'm going to go into it. But damn, I was really still connected to seeing my purpose as part of work and what I do and how I perform. And I think it took me the best part of probably 4 months to try and get out of that mindset of, okay, what do I do next? And why do I have to do something next? And why do I have to go back to a job? And why does it have to be in the same industry that I do? But it's an interesting thing because the broader society will often ask you the question of, when are you getting back to work, right? And so I think that's a really interesting question that continues to circle back again and again and again. Is I think maybe, it comes from a nice place. It comes from a place of concern. But people are like, what's next? What are you going to do? Are you looking for a job? And it's an interesting thing.
I think it's also habit, because it's also, what do you do? It's so habitual and so built into society that actually it's easy. It's those easy questions, isn't it? And it says a lot. I've got a great friend who refuses to ask those easy questions. And so she asks, when she meets you, she asks, tell me the story of your name. But actually, it's a bit uncomfortable. It's not as easy as, oh, Jay, what do you do? Because you actually, you're sidelining, somebody's a little bit shocked and then has to really think about their answer. And B, she's got to be okay with the silence.
Yeah, look, my favourite question when I meet people is, if money wasn't a concern, what would you do?
Yeah.
And that always sparks good conversation. What's the number one travel destination that you want to go to? And how long's your bucket list and what's in it?
Yeah, love it. With regards to you talking about retirement, and you touched on the fact that what you want and what you need, you started to explore might be sort of very different things. Just talk us through that a little bit and what you mean by that.
Yeah, look, I think it's an interesting thing, right? As we grow up, we all want to be successful and I think regarded well, and we work hard and we study and head off and you get your masters. And I think it's just an interesting thing that we kind of climb the corporate ladder a little bit. And, I ended up, buying a house in Surrey Hills, which is an inner city suburb of Sydney for those that don't know. And it's kind of like a bit of a box ticking exercise. But if you don't really need all of that, then what do you actually really need to live a good life? And I think that's what I sort of come to the realization of now is, I probably accumulated a whole lot of things which I think are probably more tied to the status or how we want people to see us, more opposed to what do I actually need.
And it comes back to, doesn't it, what's a good life for you? Because everybody has such a unique being that a good life for Jay is not the same good life for Bex or good life for somebody else. So it's really, and I think that is the beauty of that time away from work, from normal life, from routine, is being able to really start to look into what you want, what makes you happy, what makes you. I know that for me on my career break, I was actually shocked that it wasn't the stuff that I thought it would be. So it wasn't seafood platter and bottle of Dom. It actually was prawns out of newspaper on a beach watching the sunset. So there were elements that, yes, still, I love seafood, so that's the element. But actually what I thought, we'll be doing this. Actually, my favourite parts and my favourite memories were so different. And it's about kind of, I think, peeling back those layers and really getting to the essence of what makes you happy as an individual. And then, as you say, shedding almost to get to that point.
Shedding is such a great word, isn't it?
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I always have the onion. I don't know why, but I have this visualization of an onion with the layers, and it just shedding all that brown, horrible skin, and then getting to the beauty.
Yeah, it's true. And the expression people use about unlearning. I've always done things a certain way, or but now I don't have to. And it's almost getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. It's like getting out of that routine, deliberately breaking out of that routine. It's interesting. In the last few years, I've never set an alarm to wake up in the morning. I religiously wake up at like 6 to 6:30 a.m. every morning,
Wow.
like clockwork. And that's enough sleep when I wake up, and that's my body clock. But now I'm kind of enjoying changing my body clock a little bit.
And has it changed?
It has changed. I can have late night if I want
Wow.
to. What hasn't changed, I think, is probably I'm still getting the same amount of sleep.
Yeah.
I'm probably still sleeping 7 hours a night. Just depends on when I go to bed and when I wake up. But I tell you what I am enjoying. I'm enjoying just being able to get up and go for a walk around the neighbourhood.
The small things.
Something very...
With regards to that shift and not wanting to ask what you're doing next, but where are you up to on your break? Like, are you still on your break? Are you in a different routine? Like, talk us through where you're at.
Yeah, look, I am slowly heading back to work. I've started my own consultancy called Cucumber, which is work health and safety focused. Kicking that off has been fun. So a bit of a project in setting up a business and the website and all that sort of stuff and reaching out to my contacts. So that's been fun. So it is slowly getting back into, I guess, the pattern of work, but doing things that I really enjoy.
And that is where, when you talk about gratitude and how lucky we are, I feel the same. I'm so lucky to do what I love. And I think my break, and also subsequently the work that I've done around designing the next chapter is all around that, is taking all of the bits that I've loved through that, I suppose, societal blueprint that we fall into, all of the sort of training and mastering of my craft, but then actually putting it into the bits that I love and the bits that fill my cup, rather than, the bits that drain us and we think, oh God, we've got to go in and do that. And I think we also, touching on something you said earlier, I think we get addicted to that life and that striving and having a routine and I was talking to somebody the other day, and they had said about the fact that they were on their break, yet they were scheduling and making sure that it was like, 7 a.m. they were doing yoga, and, by 8 a.m. they were doing this. And she said, suddenly I was like, hang on a minute, I have just literally taken my timetable from work to doing this. And like you said, it took you 4 months and that's almost unlearning, right?
It absolutely is. And it's really interesting that we are programmed like that. We feel like we've got to occupy our day and we've got to be doing things and it's got to be meaningful and cut ourselves a break. We're having a break. We're allowed to have a break. You're allowed to put your feet up on the lounge for a minute if you want to. It's perfectly okay. I think one of the fun things for me has been catching up with other people that are taking breaks or have been made redundant or are having a bit of a sabbatical as well. Almost a bit of an alliance, I guess. We've got the free time to go out and hang out and enjoy ourselves, and everyone else is stuck at work. So I think that's been an interesting experience as well.
And it's what it says on the tin. It's a break, right? And sabbatical, I think the word, if I'm not wrong, came from the Sabbath. So it came from, that time to do nothing. But yet we still are so ingrained in this whole, we've got to keep up and keep this whole productivity piece going. Were there any resources or books or programs that you delved into on your break that supported it or, helped you through that unlearning?
No, not at all, actually. I mean, I've been lucky enough to do a little bit of reading and picked up the occasional book and done things like that, but nothing directed at how do I do this? How do I have this break? Look, I think I was just ready for it. Like I was saying, my last break was 2002. When you haven't had a break for 20 odd years, you're certainly looking forward to doing nothing for a little bit.
Yeah. You mentioned the travel. What was the highlight?
Oh, too many to mention. Look, I'm such a traveller and I'm a real water boy too. I love being in the water. So, I've fallen in love with Indonesia. And it's not just Bali, it's, all of the different islands of Indonesia. And I think anyone listening, if you're one of these people that heads off to Bali, please head off to other parts of Indonesia. It's just the most amazing, beautiful country with the most amazing people. So for me, that's been really, really satisfying.
What would be the islands that you'd recommend?
Head over towards Nusa Tenggara, those sorts of areas, Komodo Island. There are, that sort of area is very untouched. It's still set up for tourists. It's easy to fly in and out of, but it's not Bali. Yeah, just don't do Bali.
Did you see dragons?
Of course I saw dragons, yeah.
Yes! That is on my bucket list for sure. I have to say, I terribly have only ever done Bali in Indonesia. So that is on my bucket list, but the Komodo dragons are so on my bucket list.
Yeah, they are just sensational. Just beautiful animals.
Massive. Aren't they massive?
Massive.
Yeah, unreal.
Massive.
Looking back, what do you wish you'd known pre-break to now?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I think it would have been nice to have maybe spoken to a few other people that have had sabbaticals, but I think it's so individual. I know other people that have headed off and had breaks, and they've done certain things, and some things have been about learning a language or doing a certain course or preparing themselves or improving themselves some way. But I think we're all very different, and so I think it's your break. Well, what do you want to do on your break? And I think I'm very fortunate that I'm in a financial position where, I don't have to worry about money. I don't have any dependents or hostages, as I like to call them. And so as a result, that allows you a whole lot of freedom. That was something that I was very lucky to experience. So what would I like to have known? Well, I would have probably liked to have known how do I pacify my friends that are extremely jealous.
Okay, interesting. And how does that manifest?
Look, I guess it's hard when you're seeing someone jumping in a plane and flying off and enjoying themselves in all these beautiful tropical locations and you're heading off to work. And so I think they're not really jealous. They're probably happy for me.
That's what you're telling yourself, is it?
That's exactly what I'm telling myself.
And so if you were talking to Jay pre-break, how would you tell Jay to pacify them?
I'll probably gloat less.
Oh, too funny. It's true though, isn't it? There is this element around how you navigate family and friends. I've had people on the podcast talking about actually getting your break all sorted and really firm in your mind before you tell anybody, because everybody has an opinion, whether it be from a concern, as you say, perspective of whether that be financial, whether that be, oh, you'll never get a job when you return, or whether it be from a jealousy perspective. And I think it also comes back to your point around it being your own break. And I actually love the fact that you mentioned about talking to others that had a sabbatical, but maybe the beauty of yours was that you didn't, and that you just did what you needed and wanted to do at that time. Because I think sometimes, again, a lot of people I speak to, they've seen somebody else go and, I don't know, do this ultra marathon and train for an ultra marathon, or they've seen, they've heard about MBAs and, let's take a break to go and do an MBA. But actually what they need is so different to that, and what their body and their soul is crying out for is so different. So I think there's a double-edged sword, isn't there, around, yes, of course, having that alliance and support is super important, but also being able to do what you need and want, rather than, again, it's almost falling back into that blueprint of, this is the blueprint of a break. No, there isn't one. It's so individual, there isn't one. You mentioned about that whole taking this time now to think about retirement and the next chapter. Just talk us through now what you're doing around looking at that, and whether that be redefining what that is to you, or how you're planning for that.
Yeah, look, for me it's about how much money do I need to live, and do I need to go back to conventional work, and starting my own business, and what's the income stream that I can live on, and what will satisfy me, and what are my needs. And so I think that's the thing for me that I'm able to try and define. I'm very privileged in the fact that I was a policeman for 17 years and I'm under a defined benefits pension scheme. So in 10 months, I get my pension from 55. So
how does that make you feel, Jay? 55. That crept up on us.
Hopefully I look half that, right?
You do.
But yeah, you're right. It creeps up on us. But then knowing that there's also going to be another income stream coming in, which takes a whole lot of stress out of your life. And what I would say is that, am I too young to retire? I think that's a question that people often say to me too. A lot of my friends are younger than me. It's like, do you really want to retire? Do you really want to do nothing? And I guess it's what will you find purpose in, and what will drive you? And is that employment, or is that other activities, or is that creative streams that you might want to get joy out of that might not necessarily be income generating originally or initially as well? Look, I think the one thing I would say about my 2 sabbaticals that I've been lucky enough to have is that they're privileged sabbaticals. You know, I have been lucky to pay financial to head off on these sabbaticals. You know, some people don't have that choice. Some people are on their sabbatical because they are burnt out and they have people that rely on them and they need an income stream, and, you know, they're having to try and reset themselves. So I think that's one thing that I've really been practicing probably almost since COVID is gratitude. Like, I am really just so blessed and so thankful for everything that I have. And I think, you know, I certainly look at my two sabbaticals in that light, that they're quite privileged.
I absolutely agree with you. I think it also comes down to being creative. Or no, I think it comes down to one, defining what a term actually means. So when we're talking about retirement, what does retirement mean? And in that, of course, blueprint of life and, you know, old school terminology, it was that you worked until you retired and then you technically played golf or sat reading books or gardening or whatever. But I think it comes down to one, defining that, and then two, being creative. You know, you talk about being privileged, and I'm absolutely with you on the fact that I constantly, and I think travel does this to us even more, because your eyes are opened to simply the geography of where you're born. So I always, when I'm traveling, it's the geography piece for me that I think, my goodness, you know, I mean, yes, I was so lucky with the parents that I was born into, you know, the way of life that we had, but actually take all of that out of it. I was born in a beautiful part of southwest England on the coast, and others are not so lucky just from a geography perspective. Yes, absolutely. But I also think that, you know, there is an element where people question, or not question, but people say to me, oh, you're so lucky, you do Australia summer, then you go to France for the European summer, and, you know, how on earth do you afford to do this? And, oh, you now have all the freedom in the world and you can work wherever you want and all of this. And I think, yes, but it's also about being creative, because in an ideal world, I would have a little pad in overlooking Little Manly that I wouldn't rent out to anybody, because I'd want to be able to go there whenever I want and have friends and family to use it as a little beach pad or whatever. I'd want my house in France. I'd want also a pad in the UK that isn't rented out, you know, and not giving me an income stream or whatever. And you'd have all of these things. But actually, it's about really getting to define what you want life to look like. As you say, defining what you need from an income perspective, and then being creative around it. My husband and I, it was either about staying in corporate and paying somebody to do up our French barn that was a wreck, or leaving corporate, not having that income, and doing it ourselves. And actually, to us, it was like the freedom is more important. So we did shower outside for 2 years. We did, you know, only have an outdoor dunny for 2 years. But it's about being creative to then get to the end goal, I think. And having gratitude along the way, but also being able to get to your end goal creatively. And I think there's always a way where you can look at things a little bit differently and do things a little bit differently. With regards to, you know, looking back on your time out and where you're up to now, what would be your, I suppose, biggest lesson or biggest learn that you're taking with you into planning for that next chapter?
Time is our most precious resource, right? It's the one thing we can't build more of. It's the one thing we don't know when it's going to expire. And it's just, you know, seize the day. Like, every day is such a gift. And I think that's the one thing that I'm taken out of my sabbatical was I'd like to think that I've used my time really wisely. And that's just not wisely in travel. It's also, I've used it wisely to do nothing sometimes, to really just do nothing and just relax and refresh. And so for me, moving forward with my next chapter, it's about how am I going to constructively and appropriately use my time that, you know, gives me some purpose. And whether that is the purpose of human kindness, of being great to other people, being great to myself, you know, what does that look like? And I think that's my biggest lesson out of this is use your time wisely.
Have you come across Mo Gawdat and his podcast?
No, I haven't.
He's amazing, and he talks about life in heartbeats. So instead of accumulating wealth, we're born with a certain amount of heartbeats, and it's constantly we're using them up. So it's almost how many heartbeats are you comfortable using up on X or Y or this person or this situation? And it's so true. It's such an amazing analogy. Look, thank you so much for sharing your story. Jay, I always end the podcast asking individuals to really share with the audience your top 3 tips to anybody who is either on the fence and thinking about taking a break, or they know they're going to take one and they're currently on one. What would your top 3 tips be?
Do it purposefully. Like, if you decide you're going to do it, and have a little bit of a plan about it. My second tip for them is don't feel guilt. I think a lot of people go into a sabbatical and they feel a little bit of guilt about having this time off and not doing what they normally do. And so be purposeful. Don't have guilt around what it is you're doing. And I don't know, I think there's a little bit about celebrating a sabbatical. Like, I think this is just such an amazing thing and an amazing experience that I think even your podcast is a chance to really celebrate it.
Yeah,
I think that's the 3 things that I would say the most. Do it with purpose, don't feel guilty about it, and celebrate it. You're having a fantastic time. You're having a fantastic break.
Yeah, no, they're great, and I think the celebrating, I haven't heard that before, and it's so true, isn't it? It's a ritual in itself, so celebrate that ritual. If people have any questions or want to get in touch with you, where's the best place to get in touch and learn more about what you do post your sabbatical?
Oh God, what is the best way to get in touch with me? Probably via email. Can I say email?
Yeah, of course, and we'll put it in the show links. As a last final aside, Cuke, can you explain that?
Cuke is short for cucumber, and in trying to keep everything simple, streamlined and efficient, cucumber has been shortened to Cuke.
Love it. And cool as a cucumber because of being in work, health and safety and keeping your cool, I'm assuming. I love the name. I love it. Thank you so much,
Exactly.
Jay. It's been wonderful to catch up and hear all about your story. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Great to see you.
I wish I could somehow steal you away from how you feel. Appreciate your situation. Let's try to keep this real. And it's like she said, we're all affected, yeah. And it's like he said, I won't let it out. Turn the other cheek, show them your smile. You won't believe.
Thank you so much for listening. I really do appreciate each and every one of you joining me. And of course, a huge thank you to Jay. I loved reconnecting and hearing about his sabbatical adventures, but also about the power of gratitude and how it shapes his outlook during and after his time away from corporate life. His story is a reminder that sabbaticals aren't just about the travel or the break itself. They're about how we show up for ourselves and others when we return. A massive thank you, as always, to Auntie B at the Flaxen, my incredible, patient and talented producer. We're also joined this season by Nikki from the Flaxen, who is working her magic on all things social media management. And of course, a big shout out to the amazing Joe Cook, whose soulful vocals we're lucky enough to feature throughout the show. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd love it if you could like and rate the show. And if you really want to make my day, please do leave a positive comment. If you know somebody who would love this conversation, do send it their way. Your support means the world and helps get these stories out to more people who need to hear them. Do you have a sabbatical story to share? Or maybe you know someone whose journey would inspire others? Do let me know. You can get in touch via Sabbatical Stories Podcast on Instagram or message me on LinkedIn. I'm Bex Thomas. Until next time, take care of yourself, keep dreaming big, and remember, your sabbatical story is just waiting to be written.
And deep down you try, dig deep, search wide, enjoy your climb, and it's all for you. Deep down you try, dig deep, search wide, enjoy your climb, and it's all for you. Deep down you try, dig deep, search wide.